Today I'm giving you my real and honest thoughts on the Laneway Dress by Jennifer Lauren, handmade in a collaboration with Akram's Ideas. So let's get started. So if we haven't met, my name's Claire, and on this channel I bring you tips, tricks, reviews, sew-alongs and lots more to help you grow your confidence in sewing and specifically dressmaking. So many of you will know Akram from Akram's Ideas. She's a sweet lady living in the USA and she vlogs about vintage dressmaking. Now, I've been watching Akram since she had about 100 subscribers, and that's just because I really love her quirky sense of humour. I've spoken before about when I started on YouTube, there were not many of us curvy girls, and Akram was one of the very few that was on the channel, on the platform, and so she was a big inspiration for me in my own dressmaking. So Akram and I put our heads together to try and come up with an idea to do a collaboration. We knew that we wanted to do a review of a dress or a garment that we both made up out of the same pattern, but we didn't know what. We went back and forwards a little bit and came up with the idea of the Laneway dress. It was actually my idea because I already owned the pattern. I'd bought it a couple of years ago, but I'd never ever made it up, and it was one that I wanted to give a go to. And I knew it had a vintage aesthetic, something that Akram's really into. So I put the idea over to Akram and she loved it. She owned the pattern. So we wanted to try and get a pattern that we both already owned, so there was no additional expense. And this worked out brilliantly because we did both have it. So that's what we decided we would make. So before we go any further, can I just ask you, after you've watched this video, to head over to Akram's channel. The link is in my description box below, and have a watch of her video. And if you like her channel, do subscribe to her as well. She's lots and lots of fun. I have seen a mock-up of Akram's dress for this, but I haven't seen the final one, so it'll be as big a surprise to me as it is to you. She has talked to me a little bit about the process. We did converse about that. So I have some idea. We had some of the similar struggles, but I'm really looking forward to seeing her video. But before we do, I've got to film this one, haven't I? So let's get on with it. Just a disclaimer, to be completely upfront, a little more than a year ago I did some pattern testing and some reviewing for Jennifer Lauren. So I pattern tested the Sorrel and the Quincy dress, which you can find on her website, and I reviewed the Pippi Pinafore. This dress, the Laneway dress, is a dress that I had bought previous to doing those pattern tests. So it's completely bought by myself, so all opinions are my own, and I'm not in contact with Jennifer Lauren regarding this review. So I just wanted to be upfront about that. And now let's get on with the actual review. By the way, just a quickie, I haven't straightened my hair. Straightening my hair is just destroying it, so I'm trying not to straighten it. So I do apologise for the beraggled look. So let's talk about the pattern. According to the Jennifer Lauren website, it's a 1940s whimsical style dress. It's a typically flared, like an A-line flared dress, not a full circle skirt, but just like A-line. So it comes with a B, C and D cup bodice, and there's also the option of two necklines, one with a collar and one without, and I chose to do the one without. So the pattern comes in sizes 6 through to 24. Now I'm going to put a picture on screen of the measurements because the measurements do range judging on whether you get a B, C or D cup. So there's quite a variety, but you can pause the video if you want to have a look into the chart to see whether this will suit your size range. And for me personally, I chose a size 24 with quite a few adaptations that I will go into shortly. So as I mentioned, I bought this pattern a couple of years ago and I had it printed on A0 paper as soon as I bought it. A couple of weeks ago I showed you a video on how I store my PDF patterns, so it was just sat in that storage system for quite a while and I was really wanting to make it up. Now there were quite a few pages in the A0 printout. I think it might have even been like 5 pages. And initially, when I got them out and was looking at them, I found it a little bit confusing. Might have been because I wasn't reading the instructions, that would have helped, but this is me. So once I studied the different pattern pieces, I got to grips quite easily with which ones I needed. So initially I traced off the size 24 with the back bodice, the front bodice which was on the fold, because there's one that's on the fold and one that's flat because it's asymmetrical, but I just wanted the simple one. So back bodice, front bodice on the fold, 2 skirt pieces. I decided I didn't want pockets and I wanted to use bias binding instead of a facing, so I literally just traced off 4 pieces, which was really nice actually to have such a small amount of pieces for a dress pattern. So in total I ended up doing 3 twirls before going on to make the actual garment. I could have done with a 4th twirl if I'm completely honest, but that wasn't happening. You'll see in a little while the effort I went to, and after the 3rd twirl I decided enough was enough and I was jumping in with my fashion fabric. So throughout the different stages of making each twirl, I did film a little bit of footage which I will insert as we go along. For the first twirl, I traced it out of the packet, only adding 1/2 inch at the waist seam on every piece. Because although the pattern fit me in a size 24 at the bust, it did come a little bit too small at the waist and the hips. So I just graded it out. I normally wouldn't grade a pattern. I certainly wouldn't buy a pattern now that I needed to grade when there are so many companies that are catering to plus size. However, I already owned this pattern and it's a waste if I just don't use it. So I'm going to cut over to that first twirl now. I've made up a twirl, fits really nice there. Really happy with that. But look at the shoulders. They're hanging off. Now I saw on the pattern piece that they were about 5.5 inches and I typically need about 4 inches. So if I bring that up to there, that would be a much better fit. I'm going to have to bring the neckline down by about 3 inches because I'm just not happy with having the neckline so high. Just a tip if you're big busted is that if you bring the neckline down, it's a bit more flattering. So what I need to do is bring in the shoulder seams. Now Kim from Dorothy's Daughter has got a really good tutorial on that in her video called small shoulder adjustment, I think that's what it's called. So she talks about how to make this area smaller but to keep the curve that you need. I need a smaller size up top and then to grade out into this size. And actually I'm really happy with that fit. Supposed to have a zip in the back, but I've just sewn it up. So yeah, once that's sorted out, I think it'll be good to go. So as you can see, I had far too much fabric here. It was just hanging off the sides. There was just so much of it. So even though it fitted me really well at the waist and under the bust, the top, it was like it was for 2 different people. So I knew I needed a smaller size at the shoulders. Say that 3 times backwards. But it was perfect from under the bust downwards. So I've made the second twirl up now, and this is with a size 18 at the shoulder into a 24, but there's still excess fabric. So I think and also still coming off my shoulder a little bit, probably could do another inch in. So I think I can go down another size because I've got pleats that stop that. I don't know if that's what's making it below. So as you can see from that footage, that it did help. It did reduce the amount of fabric, but I still had too much fabric. Now I suspected it was because the shoulder was still too big. So it was nearly 5 inches, and I typically need a 4-inch shoulder width, and that's even before the seam allowance. So it's nearer 3 inches for the actual shoulder. But as I say, the shoulder width on the size 18 was nearer 5 inches, I think just over 4.5. And so I decided this time I was going to reduce the shoulder down to the width I need and then bring the arm side round. So this is my third toile. Much better, but it still needs to come in, and I think it's the shape of the neckline. I think what I'm going to have to do now, I take maybe an inch out of there, that'll sort that out. So I'm just going to do a neckline adjustment, I think, to finally get it how I want it to look. We are getting there, and all the toiles are worth it. So that was footage 3 that you've just seen, the third toile that I did. And you can see from that video footage that I am losing the will to live now. I'm really starting to lose my patience with this pattern. So I knew at this point the shoulder seam width was the right width for me. It's the right width on every other pattern that fits me. But it was still falling off the edge of my shoulder a little bit. So I decided at this stage I was going to do a neckline adjustment. So a neckline adjustment will take a bit of width out of a neckline, thus making the neckline smaller and bringing it in. So if I took some out of here, you see it just brings it in a bit more. So that's what I decided to do, and I took the neckline in by an inch on each side. I decided that was enough. And now I was going to make it up in the fashion fabric, because frankly, if that doesn't work, nothing's going to work. Other adjustments I also made before I went ahead and made the actual garment. I lowered the neckline another 3 inches, so 6 inches in total, because it was still too high. I lowered the back neckline by 3 inches, and I wanted the sleeves to come down to my elbow, so that meant adding 4 inches to those. So before we get on with the construction of this garment, can I just ask that if you like this video and you're getting some value out of it, that you do hit like and you hit the subscribe button below. So let's get on with the construction. So initially I was thinking to make this dress up in a flowy viscose. And I was kind of putting myself under a bit of pressure to get it finished, basically because I'd had enough of it all from this point, but I wanted to finish it so that I could show you guys the process. So I cut out the front bodice in a floaty viscose and sewed up the pleats, but they were so fiddly, I just thought, I haven't got the time and patience for this kind of fabric today. You know those days, we all have them. So I just decided to choose a more stable fabric. And the fabric I chose is this. This is the actual dress, by the way. It's this. It's an art gallery fabric. So it's a stable cotton. It's probably quilting weight, cotton weight, so to speak. But it was much easier to cut out and construct with this fabric. I just need to say at this stage that I did not follow the instructions for this garment, and that's just because at this stage I have sewn so many dresses I can sew them with my eyes closed, and I don't really read instructions unless there is a specific technique that I haven't done or I'm not confident in. Then I will refer to the instructions. But in this case, I didn't read the instructions. I wouldn't recommend doing that if you are new to sewing. I would very much recommend that you follow instructions and just learn the different kinds of construction that the different pattern designers have. As you go on, you'll develop your own way of making things. Although I didn't follow these instructions, I have followed instructions from Jennifer Lauren before, because as I mentioned, that I have pattern tested and reviewed for her. So it was a requirement that I follow the instructions in those cases. For the most part, they're really simple, straightforward and easy. There was one part of one pattern that I found quite confusing and I couldn't grasp it in the written word, but Jennifer Lauren did actually later produce a video which made it all click into place. So sometimes it's just about seeing things on video rather than text. And often websites or designers will do like sew alongs, or they have tips and tricks on their website. So it's always worth checking that out if you're struggling with any kind of instructions. So just to go quickly through what I did, how I did the construction. So first off, I sewed down the pleats, or the open-ended darts as they've called them, but I just did it my own way because I didn't read the instructions and realised that they were open-ended darts. So that was sewn down as pleats, and then I sewed the back darts as well. At this stage, I then sewed the shoulder seam. So I was finishing edges off with my serger as I went along this process. So after sewing the shoulder seams, I then finished the hems on the sleeves before attaching those. Now they are set-in sleeves. If I can help it, I will always put them in flat. And that's just the way I like to do it. Not everyone does it that way, but I do. So I set in the sleeves, or not set them in, I laid them in flat. I sewed them in flat with slight gathers. So normally I might sew the sleeve from there all the way down, but I wanted to attach the front skirt and the back skirt to the front and back bodice first, and then I could have one long sleeve from the end of the sleeve to the end of the hem. So then I attached the skirts, and then I sewed the side seams up. At this stage, I then added the bias binding to the neckline and to the hem. There's the hem. And I just used blue bias binding because I didn't have any red available. I only had pink or blue. So I decided to go with contrast blue, and I think it does complement it quite nicely. And there's my neckline as well. So I did that, and then I put the invisible zip in, sewed up the rest of the back of the skirt, and then I finished stitching down the neckline bias. And yes, I did hand stitch the bias binding down, and that's it. So before we get on to the conclusion and what I think of this pattern, which I think you're probably getting a feeling for by now, can I just ask, question of the day, have you made the Laneway dress by Jennifer Lauren? What did you think? Leave your honest opinions down below and let us know. If you've got any quick fixes for any problems that you came up with this dress, do leave them below so we can all learn from one another. Right, so let's get on to what I thought. So I tried this dress off, and I'm going to insert some footage of me wearing it here.
You can fly higher than the sky, shine brighter than the stars. You can have all you ever wanted.
I tried this dress on, and to be honest, I was hoping after all the effort that I'd put in that I was going to have some kind of eureka moment and it was all going to magically fit me perfectly. And that wasn't the case. And actually, I felt a little bit emotional about it because I'd put so much effort into this, and I wanted more than anything for it to fit perfectly. So the other patterns that I've done for Jennifer Lauren, I haven't had any issues at all. So it's been a little bit of a surprise the way this has played out, to be honest. So firstly, when I tried it on, although it did fit nicely under the bust, it was a little snug for my tummy because it's only an A-line skirt. There's not so much fabric to hide the tummy as there would be with a full circle skirt. So if I did it again, and I won't be making this again, but if I were to, then I would be putting a full circle skirt on this because that would be a lot more flattering for me. But the biggest problem I could see was the neckline. Well, not just the neckline, the whole of the upper area. And it's just not wearable as it is. Even after, you know, I'd made 3 adjustments, 4 if you count what I did just before making the actual one, to bring the shoulder in, and it was still hanging off me. I still needed further adjustments of the neckline. There was still some bagginess there. It was hanging off my shoulders. Where I'd hand stitched it down, the fabric was warped, and I'm not sure why that was happening. It might have been to do with the bias binding not stretching properly. What I'm wearing today is my wearable toile from the Helen's Closet Ashton top, which I will be doing a video of on its own. And I've just finished this today. Well, I haven't finished it. You know, I still haven't put the edges down. But look at this neckline. Now it's slightly too big, and I might go down a size actually. There's no warping of the fabric. Now, so that means the problem of the neckline on this dress is not down to my stitching, because I haven't even made any amendments on this one, and this is a really well drafted pattern. So as I know that the shoulder width was perfect for me on this final dress, it must have been that the neckline was just too wide. I could actually probably have gone down 1 or 2 bust sizes, so like a B or a C, but given my measurements, that's really, really odd. I've never been a B or a C, but Akram did mention that Jennifer Lauren takes her measurements from under the bust rather than above the bust there. So most patterns, in order to get the bust size, will take a measurement there and on your full bust at your apex to get the difference, and that will tell you your bust size. But Jennifer Lauren uses under the bust instead of the upper bust. Karina from Lifting Pins and Needles also mentioned that I could have pivoted the excess that was here into the pleats at the bottom, which is quite an advanced technique, but I do know how to do that. But to be honest, by this stage, I wanted to see the back of this pattern. There was absolutely no way I was going to go back and basically redraft the pattern for myself. There are so many other patterns that I want to make that will fit me much better, and I wasn't going to waste any more time on this. I'm really sorry that, you know, if you're hoping for a more positive review, but these are just my honest thoughts. And, you know, it was a process, and it wasn't for me. As I mentioned before, I've made other Jennifer Lauren patterns and not had any problems. Not even remotely have I had problems like this. So I'm not sure why I did, considering that she probably uses the same block for each of her patterns. It is quite odd. But I know I'm not the only one. There have been a number of other people who have come forward to me and said that they had problems with the bodice as well. And you'll see on Akram's video that she had some similar issues. Now, it has been mentioned to me that I would benefit from having my own bodice block, that I could then compare patterns that I want to make, and that would make the changes that I need to make much easier. And that is a road that I'm going to go down. And I've been planning on doing that for next year. Instead of doing a Make 9 next year, I will be doing my bodice block. So do subscribe if you want to see the process of that, because I will be sharing that with you guys next year. So now you know what I think of the Laneway dress. It's just not one of my favourite patterns, and I actually don't think that this dress is wearable as it is. I did in fact put it on to wear in this video, and I just did not feel comfortable wearing it, so I've taken it off. So anyway, if you've made it this far, thank you a million. I'm aware that this is quite a long video and it's quite drawn out, but I really do appreciate you watching. So I just want to ask you now to head over to Akram's channel and watch her video on the same dress and see what she makes of it. I love doing these collaborations because you get a better idea, because I can sit here and say that I don't like this pattern, which I have done, but you know, you're now going to get an opinion from someone else who's made it and see what they think. I suspect from what I know, she'll be a little bit more enamoured towards the pattern than I was. Do head over there, because it will give you a more rounded idea of whether the pattern is right for you to try. And I'll link to the pattern below in the description box in case you do want to go and have a look at it. So if you would like to support my channel, you can do by commenting, liking, subscribing, hitting the notification bell, or even buying me a coffee. from the coffee website, which link is below. I appreciate you coming and spending your time watching my video. But until next time, happy sewing and bye for now.